For more on the ongoing trade talks with the U.S., I'm joined live by Drew Fagan. He's a former federal and provincial deputy minister and is now a professor at the Munk School of Global Affairs. Drew, the Prime Minister is now saying he's looking for the best deal for Canadians if one is available. From your perspective, what do you think is a good trade deal for Canadians?
Well, the fundamental question, Matt, is whether we're going to be able to get a deal that, brings us back to a tariff-free environment. And that's looking very questionable. Japan is the latest country to do a bilateral agreement with the United States. It's the most important country to do it. The UK did too, but this is the most detailed deal. And on autos, they've agreed that the Japanese would pay a 15% tariff. It used to be 2.5%. That's not free trade. So I think one of the challenges, the fundamental challenge for the Prime Minister and those working with him, is the degree to which we can get those tariffs that now exist down. We need to remember that the free trade agreement that we do have that was negotiated by President Trump in his first term is still by and large holding. We're talking about a significant amount of trade that is not part of that free trade agreement. It gets complicated. So it's by and large holding, but it's questionable whether we're going to get down to tariff-free trade across the board, which is what we've had for the better part of 40 years.
Well, it sounds like, given the evidence from some of these other deals, that a level of tariffs on Canadian goods might be inevitable?
Well, it may be now, and let's remember that there's supposed to be a more fulsome, fuller renegotiation or review of the free trade agreement next year. And it's possible, given maybe political backlash, economic impacts of tariffs, that the United States is more willing to go back to the environment that we've had for all along. Just the process of these negotiations, bilateral between Washington and so many other countries, or big organizations like the European Union, is out of sorts with the kind of structure of international trade that we've had really since the Second World War. We're going back to a period of mercantilism where politics really trumps, if I can say so, trade. And that's where the United States has been going. That's not what we've ever wanted. So we'll have to see what comes out. That's why the premiers and the Prime Minister in particular are saying, we're not going to settle for any deal. They'll have to make a judgment eventually with what's on the table and whether that's good enough or whether they want to stay without this interim deal and go to the free trade negotiations next year.
Now, Carney's already backed down on the digital services tax and the money that would have brought in for our country. Do you think he's going to have to give up more things, maybe concessions on softwood lumber, which has been a long-standing issue between our countries?
So we've been fighting over softwood lumber again. Softwood lumber, strangely, has been an issue between the two countries, not necessarily high profile, since before Confederation. And that is the best example, going back generations, of what I would call politics trumping trade. The United States wouldn't see it that way. They see us as cheating. We see them as cheating. A lot of political power goes into that. It happens all the time with trade, but this is the best example. The digital services tax was relatively easy to put off at the very least because it hadn't been implemented. Relatively easy. What will be a real trick will be with supply management and the protections that we have increased with regard to dairy and poultry products, which President Trump knows about and has attacked going back to the previous free trade agreement. So we'll pay a price for the continued protection of that sector, assuming that it remains protected in terms of possibly tariffs on other products.
That's Drew Fagan from the Munk School of Global Affairs at the University of Toronto. Drew, thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thanks, Matt.